Hello, this is Collin Hatfield representing the Final 30 Network, and today is Saturday. One of the best days of the week, not just because we're at the weekend, but today is the day we break down film, and I am your all access guide to everything X's and O's throughout opening week in the NBA. And there's only one correct starting point. We've got to go back to opening night, a 2 OT classic between the Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. There was so much schematically going on in that game. And then we were blessed with two extra periods. And the only place to me that sounds rightful to start is the ball handling paired with the defense of OKC. We all heard before the season, Fred VanVleet tears his ACL before training camp starts. So there's a shuffle at point guard. Reed Shepard all of a sudden is expected to be thrusted in, given heavy minutes. Then we have Amin Thompson, who's not naturally a point guard, but is one of the more natural ball handlers on the team. So he's going to see minutes at point guard. But all of this creates the perfect storm against a defense that is legendary, specifically at turning you over. So I want to go back to that game, and there were multiple instances in the first half where OKC was able to put pressure on the ball, either on switches or just one-on-one great defense, and forcing Houston to pick the ball up. Once you pick the ball up and you're almost at half court, that completely stalls your offense. So now instead of getting Steven Adams that touch at the elbow, he's out at the 3 point line. Now he can't just rip and start into a post up. Now he can't get to KD on a DHO. So the pressure and the physicality of OKC really took Houston out of their offense early. But Houston was able to counter with the size and the rebounding. So that's what gives you hope. But that's definitely something to consider. Specific instances, I wanted to go back to early in that first half to where Jabari Smith had caught the ball. They reversed the ball over to Jabari Smith, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander absolutely presses him. On the weak side, they've got double staggered screens set up for KD, and Lou Dort, being as intelligent as he is, he understands if I've got Jabari handling the ball and SGA on him, that's a win for us. But also, if I can get into the body, he doesn't necessarily top lock Kevin Durant, but he slides and gets into him to negate the screens and stick with him body to body and also impede his path as he works through those double screens. That's going to create an issue. So KD can't get through in a timely manner. Jabari's being hounded on the ball. Shea pokes it, goes into the backcourt, and he's pressing him again. But then Jabari Smith gets past him, kicks it to Amen Thompson in the corner, and three goes up. Then you see the size and the offensive rebounding ability of Houston. That entire battle to me was fascinating. And I think it's a very proper tipping point for the film discussions that we're going to have today. Also, I want to focus on this 2-3 zone that Houston likes to run. Most teams run at least zone at some point in the year. You'll get a matchup where, okay, we want to keep you out of the paint, or you got a specific guy, I need to slow him down, disrupt his rhythm. But when Houston runs this, it's uniquely effective. And two things that really stand out. First is the length. If we have Jabari Smith Jr. at 6'10, 6'11 on the front line of that 2-3 zone, and then we've got a Amen Thompson on the other side who's 6'7, that's a ton of length, and it's not easy to split them. It's not easy to get passes over them or around them, and it can really slow down and stall your offense. Secondly, we have to look at how aggressive they are in terms of filtering into the middle of that zone. A lot of teams get completely killed because once that ball gets to the zone, everyone kind of dies, starts ball watching, and it just kind of puts a lot of people in no man's land. But they're more reactive, excuse me, they're more aggressive than they are reactive. There was a specific rep where they got the ball to Chet and Chet's looking for a baseline cutter, but Jabari Smith Jr. doesn't settle for being behind him. He gets right to his side, gets a hand in his face, and as that happened, and it happened multiple times in the game with different guys who OKC trusted to be in the middle of that zone. Once those two guys from the top get down there and start showing length, it's really difficult to make jumpers. It's really difficult to make passes. And then you got Steven Adams, Sengun, And KD on the back line, that's a lot of length as well. So making passes over those guys isn't easy. So those windows, they close like this. So very interesting stuff with how aggressive Houston is. I don't remember the exact timestamp, but there was a moment where basically Jabari Smith or whoever filled the top right section of that zone came down and completely covered in and swallowed up this offensive possession where OKC got the ball to the middle. So I thought that was a very fascinating battle, but never to be outdone is the OKC Thunder and Coach Mark Dagnall. As you'll notice, as they got into the second half, we started seeing them screen the outside of the 2-3 zone. So let's see a specific moment I want to look at the 2-3 zone at 431, about 431 in the second overtime. They screened on the outside of it, and that forced Sengun to come up. I'm pretty sure then Shea was able to split that. Hopefully, I'm right on that. If not, editors, please take care of me. But once they were able to start screening the outside of that zone, then it became an issue because you've got bigs that now need to step up and try to contain, and that gets a lot more difficult when you don't have Amin Thompson right next to you in gap help. You see, so OKC did a very good job of trying to vary that up and find windows to screen. They had a really good 2-3 zone beater at 5:03 in quarter three as they started to knock down the three ball that opened up the offense a little bit. So I just thought they did a good job of starting to screen the outside of the zone, be very good at manipulating the zones, eliminating the gap help aspect of it. Once again, the 5:03 one, that was beautiful because Shea was able to come down, be aggressive. Hartenstein runs in to set that step up, and as he turns that corner, Steven Adams just had no chance of stopping him. So look forward to seeing that battle more often in the future. In terms of other things I wanted to focus on in that game, very briefly, we saw this duck in action from Houston, and it was the around the 11-minute mark of the second quarter. And when I saw it, I was just like, boom, they ran that in the preseason against the Pelicans. We got to go back and find it. Both times, I'm pretty sure it was Jabari Smith on the duck in, but they do a great job of getting the ball to Sengun either at the elbow or about the 3-point line. They start Jabari Smith on the opposite side around the baseline, and he'll just run in, use that frame, put his hands up, create a duck in opportunity. I think they should go to that more often. They have to do a better job of utilizing their size. And they also have to do a better job of being physical on the points of catch. We talk about point of attack defense, but point of attack offense is very important as well. If you're not strong in commanding position, screening, you're going to get bested by very good defensive teams. So I want to see them run that action more often. And it kind of segues into one of my next points. At the end of the game, oh, it was bad. We were watching Reed Shepard and KD try to figure out that 1-4 ball screen where you have Reed trying to run his man into the screen. KD's going to hold, force the switch, walk into his spot. It's something KD's been running forever. I made a YouTube video about this over the summer. KD's been running this action since his OKC days, forever. But it was very tough because Reed is not running his man into the screen, but it's also on KD. KD is getting pushed off of his line. So you have to sit down, command position, and then set a very firm screen, hold that guy, and they both needed to do a better job of working with each other, albeit it's game one. I understand. But for the sake of conversation, we're looking at X's and O's, long term potential. So that's something that does need to be worked on when it comes to Houston, their offense, figuring out the guard situation. Guys cannot be getting pushed off their spot. And you can't tell me it's something you can't do because you do an excellent job of offensive rebounding. You do an excellent job of being strong and physical on the defensive end. So be strong and physical at the catch point on offense. Sit in your spot. Do not get moved. And it's going to eliminate starting their offense at the 3-point line. Zoom action isn't effective 35 feet out. You've got to get a solid starting point and minimize some of these spacing issues that don't just revolve around shooting the basketball. I love that game. That was fantastic. We really saw SGA go on as a shot maker. That dude is it's his league, it's his world right now. We are watching the best shot creator of our time. It's really wonderful. After that, I want to take a quick look at the Mavs and the Spurs. And let's start with the negative. Get the negative out of the way. The Mavs run a lot of pistol and a lot of zoom. It's not as effective when you don't have guys that you fear in that action. So they're running it for D'Lo, and as D'Lo gets downhill, don't get me wrong, D'Lo's good in the short floater, the mid-range game, but is he dynamic enough to control the game out of that? I don't know. I don't know. So when you're running that action over and over and over and over and over and over, and very few counters or variations to it, San Antonio knows what's coming. And it's not like we have Kyrie, who I fear going downhill to his left and downhill to his right. So if Kyrie's running Zoom, I might want to blow that up one time. We might want to change our package, get out of drop, blitz him, get the ball out of his hands. That's scary. If you have a supreme lob passer, which Wimby makes things anti-lob anyway, it's kind of difficult to throw lobs with that guy on the court. However, if you had those type of game-changing dynamics, it would be okay to run that same action, or at least if you were dominating off of it and it was scoring you points, it would be okay to run that action early, but they weren't finding that success. So I was a little appalled why they kept running it over and over again. I would like to see them vary up the offense. I would like to see some quick duck-ins. You've got a lot of big bodies. You've got guys like Coop that'll be guarded by undersized people. Stephon Castle was guarding Coop for some reps. Have him run into a duck in. Use that frame, use that size, use guys like him, PJ Washington. Do that. Also, I think AD needs to be a hub at the elbows. AD's great at the top of the key, but get AD to the elbows because at that point, it's a jab and drive, it's a rip and drive, it's a shot fake and drive. He's got more options and he's more effective at that spot. That's a consistent theme you'll see out of me when I make these type of videos. Starting your offense closer to the basket is never a bad thing. So immediately entering the ball to AD on the block or at the elbows and letting him work from there, can't beat that. So I would love to see Jason Kidd vary that up moving forward, and he's an intelligent offensive mind. I doubt they'll have much issues, especially as they get healthy, get more chemistry. But we've got to talk about those San Antonio Spurs. I'm going to leave it to our expert host on the Spurs and on the people covering Wimby in his games. He's a monster. He's in his own world. When have you ever seen someone attract a double team, shot fake, go baseline, get fouled by AD in like double pump reverse? That's scary. That's a little bit too scary. I don't know. We might need to get this guy out of the league. But with that being said, I do think they ran some inspiring offense and there were some good changes from them. I loved how they ran their drop coverage, but they involved a lot of gap help. And when you've got a team without their primary ball handler in Kyrie Irving, a young point guard in Nimhard, and a guy in D'Angelo Russell who's still getting settled, showing that gap help, but still dropping back, using your size to protect the paint. Really good move. Love that chess move from them early on the defensive end. They switched DHOs. They were really good defensively, and they were turning Dallas over. They're getting out and running, using that athleticism. But on the offensive end, they ran a fair amount of things out of horns. They had a nice horns flare set at 540 in the first half, but I was really, really, really impressed by the inverted pick and rolls that Wimby had with Dylan Harper. There was one where Harper sets the screen, he pops, D'Lo hedges and recovers, and Wimby dribbles into this pull-up three, but he pumps, gets lively off his feet, pitches it back to Harper. Harper's on the exact same wavelength, knows Wimby's going to continue that cut, gets it right back to him, dunk at the rim. If they can continue that type of stuff, the interaction between the guards and Wimby, and then Wimby obviously playing the pick and roll with them, it's going to be out of the world, and they're going to be nightmares to guard later into the season when they've got months of reps and chemistry to take care of. After that, we got to go to Golden State and the Denver Nuggets. My goodness. The string of games we've gotten to open this year have just been fantastic. But I love this matchup because you don't get two offenses that execute this well and that are this nuanced. And in many ways, they mirror each other. Denver loves to get to some delay, some five out stuff. Golden State does that as well. Denver loves to play pistol. Denver loves to screen off ball into pistol Chicago zoom action. And then when you switch, hit the slips. Golden State loves that as well. We saw that in the first game. Draymond comes up, and this might have been somewhere in the third quarter, second or third quarter, but we see that Gabe Vincent gets just too high on the high side of Steph Curry, and they're setting up for this Chicago action, and Steph just beelines that backdoor cut on the baseline. Dre hits him, gorgeous. Even when they were setting up a little bit later in the quarter on the opposite side, Dre dribbles in, and it looks like we have Gary Payton II about to set this screen for Curry to come around, and then Aiden is trying to point switch and tell, I forget who the defender was, like, yo, you need to get to Curry. I'll stay with Peyton on the screen. They both go to Curry. Peyton slips, layup, gorgeous offense for both of these teams. I really, really love this game. It was high level execution, not to mention a 50 burger, a 50-piece combo for Aaron Gordon. His jump shot is very real. It's very real and it's here to stay. Was impressed by the improvement last year, but you have a lot of guys who will have a great shooting season, then regress back to that mean. If he's striping the ball like that, it could be a real problem for people trying to match up with Denver. But let's get to some actions I really enjoyed out of that game. There, oh, okay. I don't like to start with the end. I like to build in chronologically, but we just got to start with this. It was that gorgeous. This Horns gut rip action. They run this all the time. They ran it, they massacred LA with it in their streak of punishing LA for years. I don't know what that was about. But Jamal Murray runs in to set this back screen. And typically, Aaron Gordon's going to take that back screen, but the real action is for him to screen and then be the receiver on that DHO, play the two-man game with Jokic. And then if they do try to blitz him, you've got Jokic on the short roll, Gordon in the dunker spot, toss it up, lob, the formula for them as old as time. However, Aaron Gordon had knocked down 9 threes. So what they do is Jamal starts out to set that rip screen, and then he's gonna come around and convert it to a flare. Because if you see for a split second, Draymond Green is gonna drop back because he's anticipating that Gordon cut through. So then Jamal flips it, turns it into a flare screen. Voila, game on the line. Aaron Gordon three to put them up three with less than 30 seconds. Chef's kiss. That was absolutely gorgeous. There was also this Horns rip at 5:53 mark in the fourth quarter, and it was so wide open. You could see, I don't know if Jokic was shocked, but he didn't make the pass as quick as he typically does. But they set this back screen, and I'm pretty sure it was Jamal Murray that cut in for the layup. And Jokic was like staring at him for a second, then whipped it over. They run such beautiful offense over there. They had a nice like delay flare action at 3:24 mark in the second quarter. So they just ran a lot of really good stuff. They tried to get Steph involved in the inverted pick and rolls. There was at least one rep where they did switch Steph on him and then kind of play that out, but very often they tried to pre-switch, get Steph off early, hide him in the corners. Jimmy got switched on to Jokic a couple of reps, but they were able to scram switch. Horford came over deeper into the game. So both of these teams did a good job trying to hide the weak spots defensively. But I do want to quickly actually touch on the Denver defense. In the first half, it was really good. A lot more switching out of them. A common theme this season that you're going to see is half rotations. So let's say a team pick and pops. Big is going to get out to the three. Some teams will fully rotate a third guy to go in to switch onto the pop man. But what a lot of teams are doing are taking that guy from the wing and having him halfway rotate into the gap, show his hand up high, and discourage that big from shooting. So we saw that out of Denver a couple of times. Saw some deep gap help, saw a lot more switching, physicality. Cameron Johnson's a great ad. Bruce Brown, great ad. I like the direction that they're going in. Even more activity level out of Jokic. Saw Jokic block a reverse layup. I love that. I have been very critical of Jokic's defense, and I think a lot of people don't talk about defense because they don't understand it. And therefore, they're not going to knock Jokic for something that they don't understand. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that his defense or lack thereof has been very detrimental to this team at a lot of points in the past couple of years. Think about the year that they made it all the way to the finals. They had a young baby Anthony Edwards in the first round. That team wasn't talent wise ready to go yet. You get Phoenix in the second round. Chris Paul goes out, DeAndre Ayton goes out, but more importantly than that, the identity of the team. That's a jump shooting team. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, they love their pull ups, they love their catch and shoots, they love operating off of pin downs, that type of stuff. They're not putting pressure on the rim, which is ultimately forcing Jokic to get off the ground, contest shots, play defense. You get then LA. AD is more a post oriented big, if anything. LeBron's your driver, but past that, they don't have a ton of slashers. So then we fast forward to the years that they've lost since. You get a fully developed Anthony Edwards who is ready to put pressure on the basket, get downhill. That's a problem. Next year, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander leads the league in drives, put pressures on the rim. Denver's losing. So I think people lose sight of what Jokic has in terms of shortcomings on the defensive end. But I did want all that to say, I'm sorry for the rant there. All that to say, he did a good job, especially in the first half, but they overwhelmed him in the second half. Did a great job of hunting him. He was involved in so many pick and rolls, so many DHOs and handoffs. Even that set that got Curry the three pointer, his first three pointer in overtime, it was a DHO between Horford and Jimmy Butler. And then he runs in Horford to set this down screen for Steph. And if you're Jokic, you got to come out. You got to come out and at least show. But that may not be a part of their coverage. Disclaimer, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know the coverages. Some of these things might be done intentionally with more insight than what I'm aware of. But even that game tying set, Steve Kerr was in his bag. Oh my goodness, Steve Kerr was in his bag. You've got to realize they know you need a three, and most teams are going to switch everything under 25 seconds. So they start with the flare screen for Buddy Hield going away from the ball, first switch. Now Draymond's going to run in, set this back screen for Jimmy. Jokic has to tag that. If he doesn't tag, it's going to be a layup. 2 seconds off the clock, we can play the foul game. Nobody wants to do that. So Jokic has got to go and tag that, show himself for a little bit. Now Drake can release and flash right in front of the ball. Steph mad dashes towards him, shakes with the little DHO. They rescreen. And Jokic has got to cover like 15 feet of distance to sprint back in and be at the level. That was genius level play calling. My goodness. Steve Kerr, like Steve Kerr gets a lot of flack, but then he'll draw up things like that, and it's like, yeah, you're the truth. You're like that. There's a reason why you've won the championships and had the accolades and experience that you do. But that game was fantastic. And lastly, I want to look at a matchup we had last night between Houston and Detroit. We saw the Pistons. A lot of people don't realize these teams watch and steal so much from each other. We saw the Pistons at about the 5:31 mark. Let's say it was the second quarter, 5:35 mark. Let's say it's the first quarter, actually. They run in, Houston showing 2-3 zone. Problematic for everyone, less problematic for them because they've got Cade Cunningham running the show at the top, and they've got Duncan Robinson spotting up in that zone. That's scary. But they run in, they set these two screens on the insides of both of the top 2-3 defenders. So Cade is able to get downhill off of that. By the time he gets to the rim, he throws it up. And Duran runs in because two guys obviously are going to rotate over. We don't want to give up a layup. Duran's able to step in. Don't forget, offensive pressure at the rim creates offensive rebounding opportunities. So Duran steps in, boom, punches one on the rim. They stole that right from Indiana. Indiana ran that a ton in the playoffs, especially when teams would try to zone up against TJ McConnell. They would set those two inside ball screens. TJ would get in there, get a pull up jumper, draw the defense up. So that was nifty. Definitely something to be aware of. But Duncan Robinson really kind of took the effectiveness out of that zone early. There was one time Cade was able to split the pick and roll. This wasn't zone, but they came up to hedge really hard, splits it, gets downhill, pitches it out to Duncan, spot up three on the wing. We also had Duncan moving around in that zone, being in the deep corner. And if you're able to get that ball to the wing with those three guys, typically someone's got to step up and show on the wing, but then it's going to draw that middle defender on the 2-3. And someone needed to get out to Duncan Robinson. I forget when he made that deep corner three, but that was a result of it. Knowing and manipulating spacing, being very intentional where you put your shooters at. So there was some very good stuff that Detroit did to try to counter the size, the physicality, and the defense. But over to Houston, 0-2, no real point guard. No one expected them to be 0-2. And it's been a difficult adjustment. I think that's a fair thing to say. A fair thing to say at the least. But there was a few specific moments within that game I wanted to look at. And we can look at the positives first. We finally saw the first pure DHO from Sengun. Well, rejection of the DHO from Sengun to KD, 6:18 mark in the fourth quarter. I think it was a decoy zoom on the strong side. They reverse it over to Sengun. KD's cutting up like he's going to go towards him, rejects baseline backdoor. KD gets the dunk on his way to 37 points. That real first taste of what Durant is in Houston. Hopefully they enjoyed that. We saw the duck in again. 8:27 mark first quarter. They ran that duck in again. Something to keep your eyes on. And also, I'd look to see. I know Kevin Durant's not the most physical, but I would want to see them run that for Kevin Durant. Try to clear things, get him room to operate, because that's going to be very important. They did turn over Cade Cunningham a lot. And there was one specific rep where they trapped the step up screen. They wanted to hunt Reed specifically, but they wanted to switch matchups and get different guys on Cade early in the shot clock. But 9-10 ish in the fourth quarter, they're going to trap the step up screen. Then I'm pretty sure they sent Tari Eason on a full rotation to take away his first read at the top, caused a turnover, and that's great adjustments. They had been getting beat with that step up screen a couple of times in that game. So good wrinkle. Kevin Durant said in the Mind the Game pod that Ime Udoka will just throw different coverages at you simply to mess up your rhythm. And those are the moments that are so effective. You get used to beating a team a certain way, you get used to certain actions, but then you have a coach that will just randomly throw a trap at you, and then we've got a full rotation to your first read. That's difficult to create offense out of. But in terms of Houston, this has annoyed me as a Kevin Durant fan because I always wanted to see him again in a spot to where he didn't need to be the pure point guard. He didn't need to be the guy running offense, getting others open. But we saw at the end of the game in OKC, they ran this flat double at him. He was able to pass it ahead to Sengun, creates an advantage for Sengun to go and create offense late in that game. We saw short roll at about the minute mark in the second quarter. We saw him be able to create versus more aggressive defenses. Even down the stretch, we saw him in the short roll when he hit Sengun with the game on the line. And Sengun got blocked. But Kevin Durant might be the most reliable playmaking option. He's going to be turnover prone, but he has the gravity to actually draw aggressive coverages and create more advantages. So I do look that they might need to get Kevin Durant more on the ball. And that's one of the things I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see it, but it might be necessary. But we'll end here. With that last segment, we obviously saw the short roll. It was about the 12-second mark. They come up, they're aggressive and at least at the level, if not blitzing Kevin Durant. He gets it to Sengun, and Sengun goes and gets blocked. But something I would love to see them steal. Golden State has done a revolutionary job at weaponizing non-shooters. So as Sengun gets downhill, we've got Tari Eason, pretty sure, wide open in the corner. Let's rewind to the play-in last year where Golden State is facing the Grizzlies. We have an inverted pick and roll. Steph is screening for Jimmy. There's a slight hesitation. Jimmy gets downhill, and we've got help stepping up in Zach Edey, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, excuse me, far corner. He's going to pitch it to Draymond. Draymond knows I'm not here to take the shot. I'm going to simply run in, create a DHO opportunity for Steph. Steph comes around, knocks down a three. That's literally a step by step copy of what Houston could have done last night. You get that ball to Sengun. Sengun sees the help stand up. He's a passer, good court processor, gets that ball over to the corner. Durant runs in, and instead of dying on the second action of the play, we can extend it. But that was one of my worries. Udoka is a brilliant defensive mind, but we saw lackluster offense from the Celtics in their first finals run with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Houston obviously struggled in the half court last year. And I understand they don't have necessarily the personnel of an elite offense, but there's some lackluster things from the coaching staff side of things I think that should be better. And that's something that should be harped on. If you're not a good shooter, why just stand out there? Let's make you valuable in some type of way. So hopefully they're able to put that clip in of that game. It's the play-in. They kick it to Draymond. Draymond's not standing there and just shooting. He's gonna run in, set that DHO, screen for Steph. Eason could have done that for KD, and instead of getting a Sengun block with the game on the line, Kevin Durant is running around for either a pull-up three opportunity or an opportunity to get to the mid-range, which is his sweet spot, and pull up. That was a run. Appreciate you all tuning in. I love doing this. Can't wait to do some more of it. Please comment, send messages, let us know what you want to see in-depth breakdowns of. Is there any specific content, actions, strategies, etc. you want to see? I'm all down to cover it, but appreciate you all. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow on whatever platform you see this. Much love. Take care.